is practical.
Hello everyone, I'm Portia with PracticalPorche Crafts, and today I'll be going over two very easy Tunisian crochet patterns that you can use for anything ranging from just dishcloth to scarves or what have you. First one is basically purling 3 and knitting 1, and that is the repeat. Is purling 3 and knitting 1, and you get this pretty little ridge here, and it's very simple, very clean looking. This one is doing a purl border. This one has a purl border as well, but your Tunisian knit stitch for 2, you're going to simple stitch 1, and then you're going to purl stitch 1, and then you get this, like, these are the knit stitch, this little ridge here. This is a simple, and then you can see the purl. Actually, the combination of the, so you got knit, knit, simple, and then a purl, and it sets that off. And that turns out to be very pretty. So I guess we can go over the easier one first. They're both pretty easy, but this one is a little bit like simpler because it's just less that you have to do. The cast on for it is a multiple of 4 plus 1 if you want to do your border. 4 plus 1, and I think this one I did 41 and this one was 45. For a washcloth, I would say either one, the 41 or 45 would suffice. For our sample, I guess I'll do 17, and maybe I'll do 25. I'll do 25. So after you make your slip stitch, your slip knot, just chain up however many you want, a multiple of 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that wide enough for a sample? We'll do one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. And then what you're going to do is pull up a loop in all of those chains except for the last chain, since this chain is basically the stitch that's already on your hook. So you make it down your row, and I'll be right back after I make it down this row. Okay, after you've pulled up a loop in all of your chains, you're going to do a return pass as normal, which is basically chain 1 and then pull through 2 loops at a time. So 2 loops, 2 loops, 2 loops. Now after you get to the end of the row, you're going to do the Tunisian Purl Stitch, and I would recommend doing at least 3 I'm recording rows of Tunisian Purl, but you can make it as thick or as narrow as you want. For this, I'll do 4. And to do the purl, you are basically doing the simple but with the yarn in front. Now after you get to the end of the row, you're going to do the Tunisian Purl Stitch, and I would recommend doing at least 3 rows of Tunisian Purl, but you can make it as thick or as narrow as you want. For this, and you just Tunisian purl down the row. Okay, after you get to the end, you pull a loop under these two loops on that edge, and then you just chain one, and then pull through two loops down the row. Okay, and now that you're back, just go ahead and do that again for however many rows you want your border to be. And mind you, the side borders are going to be 4, so at least 3 or 4. But if you want it thicker, then you would need to adjust the number of purl stitches you do up the side. So at the beginning and at the end of each row. And in all honesty, as long as you're consistent, you can really make this how to your preference. So whatever floats your fancy, it's just as long as you're consistent, you can get away with it. So I'll be back after a few more purl rows, and then we can go on from there. Okay, now that you've knit your purl rows, you're going to want to start the pattern. And the pattern is basically purl 3 and knit 1. And just repeat that all the way down the row. And that is going to include your border for this first pattern. So we're doing this first pattern here. And you're going to purl 1, purl 2, and purl 3. Now the Tunisian knit stitch is much like the simple stitch, which you just go through that way, but instead with the knit stitch you actually pull through the back. So you're in between this little V right here, you're going to go in between that, and you're going to pull a loop from the back. Again, purl 3, and then knit, going in between, coming through the back and pulling the loop. Then you're purling 3 and then knitting 1, and just continue that down the row. Oops. And you don't want to go in between the 2 stitches. That will be a full stitch. You want to go inside that stitch, inside 1 stitch, and that'll be the knit stitch. And then after you get to the end of the row, you're going to do a return pass as normal. So make sure you get that last stitch. You're going to keep your row going nice and straight by picking up a loop through these 2 on the edge there. So if you turn it, you can see that you're just continuing this path up. And then that chain 1, there you go for the next the next loop is going to go right in there on the next row. So return pass as normal. After you chain your 1, you just pull through 2 and pull through 2 and pull through 2 down the row. And again, I'll run you through this row one more time, and then I will go off camera, make a few more rows of this stitch, and then make 3 rows of purl to separate before I start showing you this stitch. So one more time, we're just purling 3, and knitting 1. And then when you knit this one, it's going to be so much easier because you can clearly see that this is where I'm going, right in between there. So this is perfect for watching your Netflix or Hulu, what have you. I'm an audiobook girl myself, but it's very easy, mindless stitching. You just read your work. It tells you what to do. I read, oh, there's a knit. I don't even have to think about it. I'm not counting, just I see a purl, I'm going to purl it. I see a knit, and I'm going to knit it. And then turn that. Turning it helps, so you can really see where you're going and where to pick it up from. And then chain 1 and pull through 2 down the row. And I'm going to go off camera and I'll be back to show you this next stitch. Okay, now we're going to get started on this pattern. Similar to this one, you're going to have a multiple of 4 plus 1, but with this pattern you jump right in. But with this one you're going to do a border of 4 purl stitches. So whereas the other one had 3, this one will have 4 purl stitches. 2, 3, and 4. And then you jump into the pattern, which is knit 2, one and 2, and then you're going to simple, Tunisian simple stitch 1, and then you're going to purl 1. Again, knit 2, 1, 2, simple 1, and purl 1. And when you get to the last 3 stitches, you're going to purl them, which will be 4 because your last stitch was a purl. So that kind of works out. And then you're just going to pull through that last stitch and then return pass as normal, which is a chain 1 and then pull through 2 down the row. And if you're into like the sampler patterns, like these, you can just kind of bop around between these two because it's the same multiple. It actually kind of works out. So I'll do that row again, purl 4, and then start the pattern. And just like the other pattern, you can kind of read what you're supposed to do. So you come to these elongated looking areas, and that's going to be 2 knits. The Tunisian Simple will just look like a straight line, and then the purl stitch will be kind of tucked in between. And then when you get to the end, you should have 3 left, and then you just purl those 3, which will make a total of 4 on the end, just like 4 in the beginning. And then catch that last stitch and then return past as normal. I will go ahead and finish this off camera. I'll work a few more rows and then work some purl rows, and then I'll run you through 2 easy bind offs that you can do for this. I recommend the single crochet bind off over the regular bind off, but I'll show you both and then you can pick which one you prefer. Okay, I've worked a few more rows here, and now it's time for the bind off. So the normal bind off is basically a slip stitch, so I'll just do a few of those, and you can just still do your purl stitches, and then just when you pull it through that one, go ahead and pull through the loop that's already on your hook. So your purl stitch is normal, and then pull through both loops on the hook, and then you're just binding off these stitches as you go. Now a nicer, I think, and easier to work into if you were doing anything else stitch, which, I mean, this is pretty nice. You can actually go into that one fairly easily if you needed to put an extra border on it, but the single crochet, so basically continue doing your purl down the row, because you do your purl border at the end, and then pull it through 2, if that makes sense. So before, you're pulling it straight through, but this one you're gonna pull through that one and then pull through both. So you're basically just making a single crochet. And that will give you a little height. It will also make it easy if you wanted to do any extra borders going around it, if you wanted to crochet around it. And I just like that it's softer and stretchier. You can see the difference. So those are the slip stitches, and these are your single crochets. If you look at it, the single crochet ones are so much looser and they're softer, but the slip stitch is just, it's shorter and it's tighter. So that is basically it in a nutshell. And you can pick the bind off that you prefer, and you can combo these any way you like. You can even just combine them in the middle of the row and doing this one for a few and then this one for a few. Just, it's your prerogative. That's why I call them recipes and not patterns, because you can really just make it however you want to make it. Like, you can just play with it and turn it into all sorts of fabulous things. So feel free to tag me on social media if you make any of these. I love, love, love seeing when people make things from my ideas. And I am Practical Portia. Thank you so much, and you have a good one.